I was publicly humiliated by my wife for being boring, so I planned my exit, filed for divorce, reclaimed my dignity, and proved stability is power. 20 years with the same boring job, and he'll never amount to anything. Those were the exact words that came out of my wife's mouth at our anniversary party, right in front of 37 people who had gathered to celebrate what I thought was our successful marriage. I was standing by the kitchen counter, holding a beer and talking to her brother about weekend plans, when she decided to turn me into the evening's entertainment. The conversation had somehow shifted to career changes, and that's when she saw her opening. "Oh, please," she said, gesturing toward me with her wine glass. "Look at him. 20 years at the same company, same desk, same routine. He clocks in at 8, eats the same turkey sandwich for lunch, and comes home at 5:30 like clockwork." The room got noticeably quieter. Her sister tried to change the subject, but my wife was just getting started. "I keep telling him to take risks, apply for better positions, maybe start his own business. But no, he's perfectly content being ordinary." She paused for dramatic effect. 20 years with the same boring job. He'll never amount to anything. That's when the awkward laughter started. You know the kind, where people don't know if they should laugh or pretend they didn't hear it. Her college friends giggled nervously. My brother-in-law looked at his shoes. Her mother actually shook her head in disapproval but nodded at her daughter's words, as if confirming the assessment. I didn't react, not visibly anyway. I took a sip of my beer, nodded politely, and let her continue. "I mean, we could have had so much more by now if he had any ambition. Look at the Johnsons." She pointed toward our neighbors, who weren't even at the party. "He started 3 businesses, failed at 2, but the third one made them millionaires. That takes guts. This one," she gestured at me again, "this one plays it safe." Her voice carried that condescending tone she'd been perfecting for years, the one that made everything sound like a gentle suggestion while actually being a direct attack. "Honey," her friend tried to intervene. "Maybe we should talk about something else." "No, it's fine," my wife continued. "He knows I'm right. Don't you, sweetheart?" She looked at me expectantly, waiting for me to either defend myself or agree with her assessment. I set my beer down calmly. "You're absolutely right," I said. "Some people do need to make changes." She smiled, thinking she'd won some kind of victory. "See? He gets it." But I wasn't done. "The key is recognizing when something isn't working anymore and having the courage to walk away," I said, looking directly at her. "Even if it means leaving behind something you've invested 20 years in." The double meaning wasn't lost on everyone, but she was too caught up in her moment to catch it. She laughed and raised her glass. "To new opportunities and better partnerships." "I'll drink to that," I replied, finishing my beer. The party continued for another 2 hours. She kept making little comments here and there, each one designed to reinforce her point about my lack of ambition. When her cousin mentioned his promotion, she said, "Must be nice to work with people who actually want to advance." When someone talked about their vacation plans, she mentioned how we always went to the same lake house because some people don't like change. I watched it all unfold with a strange sense of detachment. 23 years of marriage, and I was seeing her clearly for the first time. Not the woman I fell in love with, not the partner I thought I'd build a life with, but someone who had, apparently, been keeping score this entire time and found me lacking. The worst part wasn't even the public humiliation. It was the realization that this probably wasn't the first time she'd talked about me this way. How many conversations with her friends had started with, "You know what my husband did now?" How many times had she rolled her eyes when my name came up? By 10 o'clock, the last guests were saying their goodbyes. Everyone hugged and thanked us for a lovely evening, though I noticed a few people gave me those sympathetic looks you give someone after a funeral. "That went well," she said, kicking off her heels in the living room. "I think people had fun." I was loading glasses into the dishwasher. "Yeah, lots of entertainment." She missed the sarcasm entirely. "I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed." She paused at the bottom of the stairs. "Can you finish cleaning up? I know you like everything in its place." Another little dig. Another reminder of how predictable and boring I apparently was. "Sure," I said. "I'll take care of everything." She went upstairs, probably already planning tomorrow's activities, completely unaware that she had just hosted the last anniversary party she would ever host as my wife. I finished cleaning the kitchen, turned off the lights, and sat in my home office. For the first time in 23 years, I was planning something that would definitely surprise her. She was snoring by 11:15, the kind that comes after too much wine and the satisfaction of publicly humiliating your spouse. I sat in my office until 2 o'clock in the morning, not angry, just focused. I opened my laptop and started typing a resignation letter, professional and final. After 23 years of service, I hereby submit my resignation from this position, effective immediately. Recent performance reviews have made it clear that my contributions are no longer valued. I believe it is in both parties' best interest to pursue new opportunities. I printed it, signed it, and placed it in an envelope. Next, I pulled out our financial records, bank statements, investment accounts, retirement funds. 23 years of shared finances spread across my desk. The picture was revealing. My boring job had funded her comfortable lifestyle. The steady income she mocked had paid for her yoga classes, shopping trips, and tonight's anniversary party. By 3 o'clock in the morning, I was researching divorce attorneys. I found 3 with excellent reviews and sent inquiry emails. I also organized money, not hiding it, just moving funds to accounts she rarely checked. Emergency accounts seemed appropriate for this situation. The calmest I'd felt in years. No anger, just cold clarity, like finally waking up from a dream. I thought about her pattern over the years, comments disguised as jokes, the way she'd sigh when I talked about work. Countless times she'd suggested I think bigger while enjoying every benefit of my steady approach. By 4:30, I had responses from attorneys willing to meet within days. I closed the laptop and designed something special, a business card. Front, new partnership opportunity. Someone who values potential. Back, my contact information with now accepting applications for serious inquiries only. I printed 50 cards on cardstock. At 5:15, she was still snoring. I showered, dressed, and had breakfast. My last breakfast in this house as her husband. I left at 7:30, same as always. But first, I placed the resignation letter on her nightstand next to her phone, tucked one business card into the envelope. The drive felt different. Every familiar street looked the same but felt completely changed. During lunch, I met with an attorney specializing in strategic divorces. "You seem remarkably prepared," she noted, reviewing my documents. "I've always been thorough," I said. "Apparently one of my boring qualities." She smiled. "Boring people don't usually walk into my office this organized. We discussed process, timeline, and likely outcomes based on our assets." I finished work and headed home at 5:30. Her car was in the driveway. Lights were on. I could hear her on the phone, voice strained and worried. 5:42. She'd had 10 hours to find the letter. Time to see how my predictable wife handled something completely unexpected. I walked through the front door at exactly 5:45. She was pacing in the living room, phone pressed to her ear, the resignation letter crumpled in her other hand. "No, Mom, I'm not overreacting. This is serious." She looked up when she heard me enter. "I have to go. He's here." She hung up and held up the letter like evidence at a trial. "What is this supposed to be? Some kind of joke?" Her voice had that forced laugh people use when they're trying to convince themselves something isn't real. I set my keys on the counter and loosened my tie. "It's exactly what it looks like, a resignation letter from our marriage." She waved the business card. "And this ridiculous thing about partnership opportunities? You made it clear last night that I lack ambition and will never amount to anything. I'm simply taking your advice and seeking better opportunities." She stared at me like I'd started speaking a foreign language. "I was just joking around. People say things at parties, you know. I didn't mean it seriously." "Funny. It didn't sound like joking when you said it 3 times. Or when you compared me to other husbands who had real ambition. Or when you got laughs at my expense." I walked to the kitchen and opened a beer. Same brand I've been drinking for years. Apparently another boring, predictable choice. "You're being ridiculous," she said, following me. So I made a few comments. "Big deal. Married couples tease each other. Teasing happens between equals. What you did was different." I took a sip. "You publicly evaluated my worth as a husband and found me lacking, so I'm accepting that evaluation." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her face changed. "Who did you tell about this?" "Tell about what?" "Your sister just texted asking if everything's okay between us. Someone's been talking." I shrugged. Word travels fast in small circles. Maybe people remember what you said last night. She sat down hard at the kitchen table. "This is insane. We've been married 23 years. You can't just quit because of one bad night." "One bad night?" I leaned against the counter. How about when you introduced me at your company picnic as the most reliable man in America, and everyone laughed? Or when you told your book club I was allergic to risk? Or last month when you said I had the entrepreneurial spirit of a houseplant? Each example hit like I was reading from a list, which, in a way, I was. I'd been keeping mental notes for years. Those were just... She stopped. I talk when I'm frustrated. It doesn't mean anything. It means everything. It means you've been evaluating our partnership for years and broadcasting your disappointment to anyone who will listen. My phone rang. I glanced at the screen, the attorney's office. Excuse me, I need to take this. Don't you dare answer that phone, she said, but I was already walking toward my office. The call was brief, confirming tomorrow's appointment and asking about asset documentation, professional and efficient. When I came back, she was sitting exactly where I'd left her, staring at the business card. You actually made business cards, she said quietly. I believe in professional presentation, even for career transitions. This isn't a career transition. This is our marriage. Same principles apply. When a partnership isn't working, you explore other options. She stood up abruptly. Stop talking like this is some business deal. We have a life together, a house, shared friends, history. We have assets and social connections, but not a life together. I shook my head. Partners respect each other. They don't use each other as punchlines. Fine. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those things. There. Happy now? I studied her face. You're not sorry you said them. You're sorry there are consequences. That's not true. Then why did you call your mother instead of apologizing to me when you found the letter? She opened her mouth and closed it twice. You called her because you're worried about logistics. How this affects you. What people will think, whether you can talk me out of it. I finished my beer. But you haven't once asked why I felt compelled to write that letter in the first place. Because you're being overly sensitive about a stupid comment. There it was. I smiled. Still my fault. Still an overreaction to your perfectly reasonable behavior. I walked toward the stairs. I'm packing a bag. I'll be staying elsewhere while we sort this out legally. You can't just leave. I stopped on the third step. Watch me. Where will you go? That's covered under new opportunities. Didn't you read the business card? 20 minutes later, I had a suitcase packed and was walking toward my car. She stood in the doorway watching, probably expecting me to change my mind. This is really happening? She called out. I opened the car door. You wanted someone with ambition who takes risks and makes bold moves. Congratulations. You got exactly what you asked for. I stayed at my coworker's place that night. He'd gone through his own divorce 2 years earlier and understood the value of a quiet couch and no questions asked. She called 16 times before I blocked her number and switched all communication to email only. The first email arrived at 6 o'clock in the morning. We need to talk. This is getting out of hand. The second at 8, I spoke to a counselor. We can work through this. By noon, there were 7 more, each one escalating from reasonable to desperate to angry. I responded to none of them. Instead, I spent my lunch break finalizing paperwork with the attorney. Clean, efficient, no drama. Just like she'd always said I preferred things. The real breakthrough came Thursday evening when I stopped by the house to collect more clothes. She was waiting in the kitchen, with a full presentation prepared. I've been thinking, she started, and you're right about some things. I could be more supportive. I continued folding shirts into my suitcase. I talked to my sister. She said marriage counseling worked wonders for them. We could try that. Counseling requires 2 people who want to solve problems together. You want to solve the problem of me leaving? Different issue. Don't be sarcastic. I'm trying here. I stopped packing and looked at her directly. Are you trying, or are you trying to manage a situation that got out of your control? I want to save our marriage. Why? The question caught her off guard. Because we're married. Because we love each other. Do we? Because love usually involves respect. And respect doesn't include public humiliation for entertainment value. She sat down heavily. It wasn't supposed to be humiliating. People were laughing at me. Not with me. At my expense for your amusement. You're making this bigger than it was. I zipped the suitcase closed. Then explain why your friend Jennifer called my office today to apologize for laughing. Explain why your brother texted me saying he felt uncomfortable at the party. Explain why your mother left 2 voicemails saying she was embarrassed by your behavior. Her face went pale. Jennifer called you? Apparently some people recognize inappropriate behavior even when you don't. I headed for the door, but she followed. Wait, what did Jennifer say exactly? That she realized how mean-spirited it was after thinking about it. That she'd be mortified if her husband was treated that way publicly. She leaned against the wall. She said, "Mean-spirited?" Her exact words were cruel and unnecessary, but I'm sure she was just overreacting too. The fight went out of her then. For the first time since this started, she looked genuinely shaken. I didn't know people saw it that way. How did you think they saw it? 37 people watched you systematically tear down your husband's character. What reaction did you expect? I thought... She paused. I thought they'd agree with me about you needing to be more ambitious. So you weren't joking. You were building consensus, trying to get validation for your disappointment in me. She didn't answer, which was answer enough. My phone buzzed. Text from the attorney, papers ready for signature tomorrow. Proceed as planned? I typed back. Yes. Who was that? She asked. My new business partner. Very responsive and professional. Exactly the kind of person who values clear communication. Your attorney, she said. Someone who takes my concerns seriously and treats me with respect. Novel concept, I know. I opened the front door. I'll be by Saturday for the rest of my things. Please have your attorney contact mine if you want to discuss asset division. Your attorney? You actually hired someone? I told you I was exploring new opportunities. This is what people with ambition do. They follow through. This is insane. We can fix this. I stopped in the doorway. Fix what exactly? Fix you having no respect for me? Fix years of you broadcasting your disappointment to friends and family? Fix the fact that you think apologizing means finding better ways to hide your contempt? That's not. It is exactly that. You're not sorry you feel this way about me. You're sorry I found out and did something about it. I got in my car and rolled down the window. The business card wasn't a joke. I really am accepting applications for new partnerships with people who appreciate reliability, consistency, and yes, even predictability. Turns out those are valuable qualities to the right person. Her last email arrived at midnight. Fine. If you want to throw away 23 years over one stupid comment, that's your choice. But don't expect me to make this easy for you. I forwarded it to my attorney with a note. Client appears to be shifting to hostile negotiation tactics. Please proceed accordingly. Some partnerships end with mutual respect and understanding. Others end with lawyers and evidence files. She'd apparently chosen which kind of divorce she wanted. Perfect. I'd always been better at business transactions anyway. 2 weeks into the separation, she started making phone calls. Damage control, her sister called it. I called it panic. Her friend Jennifer told me about the first call. She wanted to know if I really thought what she said was that bad. When Jennifer said yes, she got defensive and said, "You were overreacting." Her brother was more direct when he called me. "She's telling people you had some kind of midlife crisis and abandoned your family over nothing." I told him that's not how I saw it. But the real wake-up call came from an unexpected source. I was having lunch downtown when her yoga instructor approached my table. I'd met her a few times at social events. "I hope you don't mind me saying this," she started. "But I'm glad you finally stood up for yourself." "Excuse me?" "She talks about you in class sometimes. Always complaining about how you never want to try new restaurants or take exotic vacations, how you're content with ordinary everything." She sat down. "Honestly, it made a lot of us uncomfortable. You seem like a perfectly nice guy the times I met you." She discusses our marriage in yoga class every week, your job, your hobbies, your friends, always with this tone like she was stuck with someone beneath her. She paused. I think she expected us to commiserate, but most of us have husbands who work regular jobs and pay the bills reliably. We weren't exactly sympathetic. That afternoon, I got a call from our financial advisor. "She wants to discuss modifying your investment strategy," he said. "Apparently she's concerned about maintaining her current lifestyle during the divorce proceedings." "What did you tell her?" "That any changes to accounts require both signatures, and that you're the primary account holder on most of our arrangements." He paused. She seemed surprised by that information. "Surprised how?" "She didn't realize how much of your joint financial stability was tied to your income and planning." She asked if there were other accounts she wasn't aware of. Friday evening, my coworker mentioned seeing her at Target, looking through job listings on her phone in the parking lot. "She seemed pretty stressed," he said. "Kept making phone calls and getting upset." The pattern was becoming clear. 23 years of steady income had allowed her to build a lifestyle she couldn't maintain alone. The boring job she mocked had been funding her freedom to criticize it. Her sister called me directly the following Tuesday. "She's not handling this well," she said. "She thought you'd cool off and come home by now." "This isn't about cooling off." "I know. I was at the party. What she said was wrong." A pause. "She's been calling everyone who was there, trying to get them to say it wasn't that bad. And what are they saying? Most people are avoiding her calls. The ones who do answer are pretty honest about how uncomfortable it was, including you. Especially me. I told her she crossed a line and that you had every right to be done. That weekend I went to collect more belongings from the house. She was waiting with a new strategy. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began carefully, "about respect and partnership." I continued packing books into boxes. "Maybe I have been taking you for granted. Your stability, your income, the way you handle everything so I don't have to worry." Interesting perspective. I called my cousin about that job opening at her company. Hard time to start, but it's something. I looked up. "You're getting a job?" "Well, I might need to for the divorce." She said it like the idea had never occurred to her before. 23 years of marriage, and you never considered what would happen if you had to support yourself? I never thought. We were supposed to be permanent. Permanent partnerships require maintenance, like respect and appreciation. She sat on the couch watching me pack. "I really didn't think it was that serious what I said at the party." "But you meant it. That's the difference. Maybe I did, but I didn't mean to hurt you." I sealed the box and labeled it. "You meant to entertain people at my expense. Mission accomplished." "The worst part," she said quietly, "is that everyone keeps asking me what I'm going to do now, about money, about the house, about everything. And I realize I don't know. That's what happens when you spend decades criticizing the person handling your security. I never thought of it as security. I thought of it as settling." I stopped packing. "There's your problem. You saw my stability as a limitation instead of a foundation, and now you get to find out what life looks like without that foundation." Her phone rang. She glanced at it and declined the call. "That's the third person today who won't talk to me. People who were at the party. Maybe they're embarrassed for you, or they're taking your side. There are no sides. There are just consequences." I loaded the last box into my car. She stood in the doorway again, like she had the first night I left. "So this is really it. 23 years and it ends because I said you were boring." "It ends because you spent 23 years believing I was boring and sharing that belief with everyone we know. The party was just the public finale. What if I change? Change for who? Me? Because that ship has sailed. That's between you and your conscience." I got in the car and rolled down the window one last time. For what it's worth, boring turned out to be exactly what I needed to be. Boring enough to plan ahead, save money, and hire a good lawyer. Boring enough to document everything and make smart decisions. I started the engine. Boring enough to recognize when it's time to walk away. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. Clean, efficient, and exactly as boring as she'd always said I preferred things. I kept the house. She got half the liquid assets and alimony for 3 years. Her attorney had pushed for permanent support, but my documentation of her years of public disrespect made that argument difficult to sustain. The settlement meeting was brief. She signed the papers without looking at me once. "This is really what you want?" she asked as we left the courthouse. "This is what you created," I replied. That was the last conversation we had as husband and wife. The aftermath was exactly what you'd expect when someone spends years broadcasting their contempt and suddenly faces consequences. Her friend Jennifer stopped by my office a month after the divorce. "I thought you should know," she said. "She's been having a rough time. The part-time job became full-time, but it barely covers her rent. She found an apartment, a studio across town. Couldn't afford anything bigger." Jennifer paused. "She keeps saying she didn't think you'd actually follow through. What did you tell her?" "That she clearly didn't know you very well." The social fallout was swift and predictable. Our mutual friends had to choose sides, and most chose the person who hadn't spent years embarrassing their spouse publicly. Her book club stopped inviting her. Her yoga class became awkward when other members started avoiding her. Her brother called me 6 months post-divorce. "She asked me to ask you something," he said. "I'm listening." "She wanted to know if you'd consider reconciliation. She says she's learned from this experience." "What did you tell her?" "That learning experiences are expensive, and some lessons can't be undone." Smart man. She struggled with the job situation. Turns out 23 years out of the workforce makes you pretty unemployable for anything decent. That's unfortunate. She also mentioned that dating hasn't gone well. Apparently, men her age want women who bring something to the table besides complaints about their ex-husband. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The truth was I was thriving. The house was peaceful. My routine was exactly as predictable as I liked it. I'd started taking woodworking classes on weekends, joined a hiking group, and yes, even tried some new restaurants. But the biggest change was internal. For the first time in decades, I wasn't walking on eggshells around someone's moods or managing someone else's disappointment in my choices. 8 months after the divorce, I met someone. A librarian who appreciated quiet evenings, steady employment, and men who showed up when they said they would. Revolutionary concepts, apparently. "You're very reliable," she said after our 3rd date. "Is that a problem?" "It's refreshing." My last boyfriend called predictability the enemy of passion. Turned out unpredictability was just code for unemployed and irresponsible. We've been together a year now. She thinks my job is interesting, asks about my day, and has never once suggested I lack ambition. She appreciates that I handle our finances, plan our trips, and yes, even pack the same lunch every day. "It's amazing," she told her sister, "being with someone who has their life together." Her sister laughed. "Careful, that sounds dangerously like settling." "No," she replied. "Settling is staying with someone who makes you feel bad about yourself. This is the opposite." Last month, I ran into my ex-wife at the grocery store. She looked older, tired. The confidence she'd had at our anniversary party was completely gone. "You look good," she said. "I feel good. I heard you're seeing someone." "I am. Is she better than me?" I thought about that question for a moment. She's different. She appreciates things you never valued. Like what? Consistency, reliability, partnership without performance reviews. She nodded slowly. "I keep thinking about that night, the party. If I could take it back, you can't. And honestly, I'm glad it happened." Glad? It forced me to recognize something I'd been ignoring for years, that I deserve better than someone who saw my strengths as weaknesses. I grabbed my cart and started to walk away. "Was I really that bad?" she called after me. I stopped and looked back. "You turned me into a punchline at my own anniversary party. You spent decades making me feel like I was failing at being the person you wanted me to be. Then you acted surprised when I stopped trying. I'm sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't undo 23 years of damage. So what happens now? Now you figure out who you are without someone to criticize. And I continue being exactly who I always was, with someone who appreciates it." I walked away for the final time. The boring guy with the steady job and predictable routine had done exactly what she said he'd never do. I'd taken the biggest risk of my life, made the boldest move possible, and came out ahead. Turned out I had more ambition than either of us realized. I just needed the right partnership to show it. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.